Today is day 36 of the self-love experiment, and today I wanted to bring you into a little bit of my personal healing process, because one of the things I do to love myself is I constantly am working on myself, right? Is there anyone else here who's like a self-help lover that just you really love to continue to dig deeper and do that work? And I think it makes me really good as a practitioner helping other people because I am constantly working on myself. And one of the things that happens is you find that if something keeps coming up, like a theme or a pain point or an anniversary. I'm in a 10-year anniversary of a huge loss in my life. Loss of my first ex-husband, loss of my life as I had seen it, loss of my family because they essentially did not have the same belief systems as me and no longer wanted to relate to me in any which way. And that was incredibly devastating. And so I've been feeling the anniversary date come up, and it's been heavy on my heart. And the good news about that, right? There's good news when we feel shitty sometimes, is that it's an opportunity to see that we still have something left to heal. And there's still something really important that we need to dig deep on to be able to come into alignment with who we really are. Because I don't believe that we're meant to feel upset from something, a breakup that happened 10 years ago, or an abandonment that happened 10 years ago, or a job loss that happened 3 years ago or 3 months ago. If we don't heal those wounds, then we keep repeating them and we keep seeing versions of them. And I think the healing is like a spiral. You can work on yourself and you can find yourself at one place in the circle. And if we're looking at it from above, it looks like we're just going around in circles and cycles. But if we're seeing it from the side, we can see that we are actually going in a spiral, that we are elevating in every iteration of our experience because we're rising above, because we are healing aspects of ourselves. And so this morning I woke up and I felt really sad. I was like, this is a great opportunity for me to do my healing work. And soul retrieval is my favorite thing in the world. It's the most powerful practice that I have ever discovered. And I come from psychotherapy training. I was a creative arts therapist, a trained psychotherapist, and I was helping people in that industry and finding that when wounds were happening, not just to the psyche and the body, but to the soul, on the soul level, feeling like your heart shattered, feeling like you go through a really difficult time, that can be an indication that you've had some level of soul loss, which I'm going to be talking about in an upcoming webinar where I'm going to devote an hour and a half to going deep to explain this ancient shamanic tradition of soul retrieval by understanding soul loss, that we can dissociate or disconnect from different vibrant, confident, self-loving, trusting aspects of ourselves, depending on what we went through. Like, for an example, you could be in a wonderful relationship and then you find out your partner cheats on you. And all of a sudden your trust is gone. You don't trust anyone anymore. Even after that relationship, or if you continue to try to heal that, you might find you no longer trust this person. Maybe in new relationships, you no longer trust anyone because there's a part of your trust that felt abandoned, that felt hurt, that left or dissociated or disconnected from you. And in psychotherapy, we just build up the other aspects of the ego. But in shamanism, we go and we retrieve that part of the soul that disconnected. And shamans and indigenous healers believed that if there was trauma, that it affected us on the soul level. And when there was a gap in the soul, when there was a part of our soul that got affected, that would become a portal where disease, discontent, depression, all of those things could come through. So I love this work because it's never ending, right? I've gone through so many initiations in my life, and I know it's because I am the archetype of the wounded healer. Chiron in my chart, if anyone's into astrology, do you know where your Chiron is? Is it in retrograde motion? In retrograde motion in your chart means that you are a really good healer. And this is one of the biggest wounds that I have, where I am constantly needing to heal aspects of the psyche and new ones, because like a spiral, it always gets better as I do more work on myself. But there is a core wound, like the archetype of the wounded healer, Chiron, who was a centaur, who was mortally wounded, but because he was not human and he could live forever, he was tormented forever, which made him really, really, really good at finding alternative healing strategies to heal himself. And he became a wealth of information, a wealth of guidance that he could help anyone and everyone, because he really created so many tools, had so many tools in his toolkit as a result of going through those wounds himself. And that's a little bit like my experience, is that the universe, God, source, great spirit, whatever you want to call it, will test us and give us opportunities to be broken so that we can break open. That wound can break us open to the next level. And this is something I've been going through for the last couple of months. Oh my goodness, I've been going through a lot of big astrology shifts in my personal chart and my natal chart. And it has allowed me to come into alignment with where I am stepping out into this world, what my purpose is. And I know my purpose is to tell everybody about soul retrieval, let them know that there are healing modalities that can absolutely shift your life. And today in my Facebook group, I'll be talking about some reasons why shamanism, specifically the practice of soul retrieval, is more powerful than talk therapy. And I'm telling you this because I was a freaking therapist. I was a clinical psychotherapist. I was working in the field and I saw where my clients were getting stuck in the same old stories and not being able to liberate themselves from those stories because of the wound. So I'm bringing this back home. This morning, I woke up and I was feeling sad. And I was reminded about the abandonment wound that I've experienced 10 years ago. And although it's gotten better, and although I've made strides, and I love who I am, and I am so happy that I'm not in contact with my family because I've been able to have the opportunity to actually become who I was always meant to be and not who they wanted me to be. And that's a really powerful thing when you can find yourself and be yourself fully, unapologetically. And I found that, and I wouldn't give that up for the world. But what I found was there was like a little ting of like, where do I belong in this world? Like, you know, that feeling that you get when you feel abandoned, right? And that was coming up for me. And I said, you know what? Like, I teach about soul retrieval. I do this for my clients all the time. It's time for me to dip back into the tools. And I honestly do soul retrievals on myself pretty often, and it has been so incredibly helpful. And so this morning I went and did a healing for myself, and they brought me back to a previous lifetime where I had played out some of these wounds with my family, where they kicked me out again, right? And that I had to go back and reclaim the parts of me that were wandering the streets, that felt alone and abandoned and were basically left out in the cold to die in this previous lifetime. And so gathering those parts back to myself, I felt this amazing surge of energy come back into my body where it was like, oh my God, I'm wanted, I'm loved. And then I was reminded about how much my partner loves me and how much his family loves me. And that was so wonderful because it was like, okay, I can be stuck in this old story where I'm playing out where I'm not wanted, or I can make the transformation and see where in my life right now, I have so many wonderful things happening and going for me. And to know that it was just one healing away from being able to reframe that. And we know that we get stuck in the past and stuck in an old story, and that we have soul parts that are lost there when we cannot get over something that happened a long time ago, couple months ago, a couple years ago, decades ago, maybe something that happened in your ancestral cycles, like with your parents, their grandparents. That's when we know that there's a piece of our soul that's missing. I'm going to be talking about this in my free masterclass next week. In 1 week, we're going to be diving deep, and I'm going to be sharing with you how to have that ultimate glow up after going through loss, after going through trauma, by detailing what this practice is like and how we do it, and how it can transform your life. But for me in this example, I was able to call back these aspects of myself, of my power, of my confidence that feel really centered in who I am and don't feel abandoned, don't feel hurt. But I was able to reclaim the parts of me. I grew up and my parents would tell me often that I was a mistake, I was not meant to be here, that I'm not really wanted. And like that hits hard when you're a child. Like you never want a family member to say that. It was horrific to grow up like that and to feel so unwanted, so unappreciated, so unloved. And that was one of the things I came back with this morning was I went back to myself and was like, you know what? I want you. I want this baby Kristen. I want this little human bundle of soul joy. And then I had a lineup of all of these different soul parts of me throughout all of my years of life that were like, we didn't feel wanted. We didn't feel embraced. We didn't feel loved. And all of those parts came back. And as they came back to me this morning, I just felt like almost like my chest grew, like I got bigger, not like bust, but like, the space inside of me expanded. And all of a sudden I was like fulfilled and filled with all of this love and the self-love on a deeper level than I've experienced, that you sometimes seek outside of yourself, but really when you can call it back inside of yourself, that's when the true transformation happens. And that's why that's why soul retrieval is my favorite practice to do, because it makes those lasting changes. And I have to say that ever since then, I feel a huge shift. I feel so much joy. And that's why I want to share that with my people. So today I'm going to be talking about that in my Facebook group. You're welcome to join. And in 1 week from today, I'm doing an amazing Go From Grief to Glow Up, healing yourself, getting your shine back, getting your glow back after trauma with soul retrieval. I'm going to be sharing all the goodies about that. What I've spent the last, 13 years studying in psychotherapy, clinical psychotherapy, creative arts therapy, studying with shamanic healers all over the world. I've studied now with 17 different practitioners that work in shamanism, many of them who are indigenous healers all over the world, in remote villages even, who are still practicing these ancient ways that are so effective. So if you're interested in learning more about that, definitely check out my webinar I'm going to be doing next week, and head over to my Facebook group because we're going to be talking about that today in my free weekly Witchy Wisdom Wednesday training. We're going to be talking about 3 ways that soul retrieval is more powerful than talk therapy. So I hope to see you there, and happy day 36. I hope that you are doing things to nourish yourself and to step more fully into your power and into your purpose. So sending you all the love today.